so just for the sake of the recording, I've been chatting with you for a little bit. Um, my name is Narani Moorhouse. I teach at the Village School at Ananda, and this is my 47th year. And so our topic today was just any wide open parenting issues, but I know now we have a teacher here too. And so if there are questions that come up, I'm more than happy to answer them. Um, when I was first thinking about what to share, because parenting and working with children in whatever way one does, how do you bring it down into just a few topics? What's most helpful? And what I noticed is right away, my mind went to the troubles, the things that, when I think about my own parenting and my husband and I, things that we faced and things that I face continually in school. Right away, like I said, it was like what's hard. The hard things came up because, of course, we all want to do. We want to be the perfect parent or the perfect teacher for our students and have everything go swimmingly. But that's one, of course, we know that's not realistic because we're not fully enlightened yet, and our kids, we're still on this journey. And also, it's not even helpful because we know, like from our teachings, if you are in a mindset of worry or concern, it leads to contractive energy. And that's not where grace comes from. That's not where wisdom comes from. And at least for myself, it can start a downward spiral where I just get stuck. And so, you know, the it's important for us to try to keep our minds uplifted and to stay focused on the light that's in our lives and in our children's lives and looking for what is going well, what is right. I always think of it as looking for the starting point. And where are they at? What's their starting point? Um, and then if you find the starting point, every little step forward is so important to keep in mind because those little steps, they might seem like the tiniest little thing, but that's how we grow. Most of the time we don't grow in giant leaps. It's a little thing it's like a foundation for the next little step and the next little step. And over time, you see, oh my gosh, there's been wonderful change happen here. I mean, that's for ourselves too. I don't know about you, but certainly for myself and certainly for what I hear from others. I was just talking to a mom a couple of weeks ago, and she just said, oh, I'm just so hard on myself. And I look at her and I think, this is a shining being. I see so much beauty in her and so much uplifted thought, and yet she's really hard on herself. But I think that's very common for all of us. We tend to see our shortcomings. We tend to see our faults. And and then of course it's easy to do that with our kids too. Um, we love them so much and and the students or our own children, we want everything to go so right in their lives. And so we're caught by when things don't go that way. And so, like at school, I have, I keep a sheet of little sticky notes, like are used on labels for envelopes and things like that. And all through the day, if I see something beautiful, if I see something positive, I write it on one of those little sticky notes. And it might be, I might not have time to write the whole thing out, but I might just put Sally sharing pencil, whatever it was. And then at the end of the day, when I have a few moments, I'll write it out. And everybody has I keep running records on my students for everything, all their academic work, but they also have pages for those kinds of um, recognitions of their growth. And so I'll just pull off the sticky note and stick it on that page. So I have this running record of all the beautiful things they've done. And, as a teacher and as a parent, having those written down, or even if it's just taking that moment to do the writing of it, it helps keep my mind uplifted. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Even my husband will often say, tell me stories about school today. And so then I have these lovely stories to tell him. And then I can come back to school the next day and say, oh, you know what? When I was home, I was telling Rick about this and this and this. And he said, and it's always lovely things about them. So there's a loop that they feel a part of, their recognized for, and a part of their growth and appreciated for that. And so that's just a simple little practice. I also really, really look for those baby steps and call them out, like, oh, I do it as a whole class usually, unless somebody's shy, and then I'll do it privately to them. But I'll say, you guys, did you just notice what Sam did? He did this. That was so wonderful. Let's clap for him. Or just to call it forth. It builds a culture in our class of looking and supporting positivity in one another, such that now it's really common. And the kids will say, did you see this? You better write that down. And so it's just what we do for one another. It takes a while to build a new habit, but it serves them, it serves me too, because it keeps my mind uplifted. I also started this, maybe last year. I got an app on my phone. It's a mindfulness bell, and you can set it to go off. It's just a beautiful little chime. I think they have other sounds too, but I like the chime. And so you can set it to go off at a certain interval of time. Mine goes off every hour. And so at school, I just call it good thoughts. And so the chime goes off. It's just this beautiful little chime. And the kids all say, good thoughts, good thoughts. And we stop for a moment and we think a good thought. And they just give me a thumbs up. So I don't stop early, but we don't take too long. It's just a time to think of a good thought. And it's lovely. Because that too, for them, keeps them regularly tuning into something that's good. Or sometimes, the other day I had a student that needed to go to a specialist for a pretty significant appointment and test. And so at the beginning of the day, when the first mindfulness chime went off, somebody said, let's make them all for, and named the student. So all day long, when the bell went off, the good thoughts bell, everyone stopped for a moment and thought good thoughts for her. And so as a practice, it's just yet another uplifting thing. And just like in our own lives as devotees, we have pictures, we have things like that around that help us. Those, though, can just become so you don't notice them because you get so used to them. So sometimes changing them up, or I used to write on the side of my hand and just a little note, a word or two, so that as I was going about my day, I would see it on my hand and I would change it every day. And even like at school, the kids would say, what does your hand say today? And I would just tell them what my hand said. And so whatever we can do, to keep ourselves uplifted. And then also I was thinking, you've probably heard this before in talks and things, but it's something actually Joe Chitchen Davy said in a satsang or a Sunday service lately, that one time Swami was facing a really difficult time and some worry was creeping in. And he knew, he couldn't let his mind be there because he needed answers. And he just used Jesus's words and he said, "Get thee behind me, Satan." And it was just like, push it away. And then he was open to the inspiration that he needed. And so, just reminding ourselves that those negative thoughts, if we're in a cycle of negativity, that's like satanic. It doesn't help us at all. We've got to lift up. It doesn't mean ignore the hardship as a parent. There are things like your child is doing something that you need to help them rise above or stop or something like that. Our job, our job is to guide them and help them. They incarnated to us. Or if we're teachers, those kids, part of their incarnation is being with us. So we can't ignore our, duty to guide them. But still, if it can come from openness and if it can come in connection to our sense of the light that is in them and their potential, um, rather than, oh my gosh, this is so hard and what am I going to do? And nothing seems to work. That mindset is not helpful. And just say, out of my mind, I'm going to master. I'm going to the light that I share with this child. There is an answer there. And also knowing we're not alone, that, we're not alone and they're not alone. And sometimes it's our job and to help them. And we'll get a, a good and helpful thought that what to do for this situation. But sometimes it's not ours to do. Sometimes it's part of their journey. Now, that doesn't mean just give up because, you can keep trying. But if you find yourself feeling like a failure and like, I don't have what it takes, those are just dark thoughts and you can't tolerate those. You have to say, but if this is what's given to me, nothing comes to me that's not a gift from Master. Nothing. He loves me. He wants what is right, the growth that's going to lead me to freedom. And he also wants what's right for this child. And so if it's ours to do, we can call out for help and guidance. At the same time, sometimes it's the child's karma. It's the child's journey. And our job is just to be there in loving support and to keep our aura around them. And, I'm thinking of like the teenage years when we don't, we don't have as much influence because other influences, their peer group and the world more and more is playing a part. But we can still, in loving support, be there for them. I mean, you don't give up. My son's 32 and I still, he'll say, Mom, I'm wondering, I still have a part. My mom's 96 and I still go to my mom. Mom, she lives here at Ananda, so it's easy. And our lives intersect, but it doesn't end. It shifts and changes. But I just think that's so important. But just to be easy on ourselves and to be open. And let's see, I'm looking at some. Oh, also knowing that there will be ups and downs. We have ups and downs in our lives. We'll maybe be working on a certain quality or an attitude, and we're really making good progress. And we think, oh, phew, done. And then a year later or 6 months later, it pops up again and we go, I thought I had that one done, And so we know that happens to us. It's also very, very true with our children. Another thing is just paying attention to our own, like what comes to us with what's going on, just like in that situation yesterday when I could feel that little clutch in my heart and realize, oh, I got to change right now. The same thing. I had a neighbor who had five daughters, and one time she and I were talking because I've had many of her kids in my class, and she was saying she had to struggle with yelling. And she said, finally, one day I realized when I yell at my kids, I get bitten. She said, it affects me. So she said, out of self preservation, I just said, you got to stop yelling because you're being affected and it's not helpful anyway. And so she did. She just stopped. If she said, if I would feel yelling coming into me, I would turn around and walk away. And then I would come back. But I had had a few moments to say, no yelling. Don't do that. You're going to feel it. And then it just, it doesn't take long to really shift your attitude. And I thought that was really helpful. And let's see. The other thing, and this is true in school constantly, in their academics, in the qualities that we're helping them develop, and certainly as a parent, maybe even more as a parent, because we're so connected to our kids and we so desperately want everything to go well, to recognize who they are. They're not us. And they have sometimes very big differences from us. That was a little hard for me because my mom and I are like twin souls. We never had issues. Even as a teenager, I don't remember her once saying no to me because I just thought like she thought, and I wanted to be the kind of person she was. Not because of just copying, but just naturally. We were just alike. And so even though it wasn't my experience at school, I thought somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew better, but my life experience was a child can be just like their parent. And I got a boy who was totally different than me. And I realized like things that he did, mistakes that he made, I would have been horrified with. Horrified. And so, like, I never wanted to get in trouble. He didn't care about getting in trouble. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. And I was constantly trying to save him from himself. And as if he would react to life the way I reacted to life. He was a totally different person. And I would say, but aren't you worried about this? Or what, if you don't do your homework, and he said, I really don't care. Why are you so concerned? And I would have just died to not have my homework done or something. And so recognizing who they are as individuals and first recognizing it and then trying to appreciate it because he had gifts that were not my gifts, wonderful gifts, things that I would be kind of, he will reach out to anyone. He is so kind and so just outgoing. And he's a firefighter now that also does a lot of medical calls. And people tell us again and again, they're so grateful that he was the one that came to them on their medical call because he was so understanding and not flustered and just was there for them. And that's just one. But, when I realized, okay, I got to give space between his reality and my reality, and I could so see his gifts. That was a big change, and it was really helpful. And that at school too. I might have some wild kid, just wild, or they really are not so interested in learning everything I'm trying to teach them. But they have wonderful, beautiful qualities. And if I can really notice them and one, appreciate them and honor them for that. And then in the things that I need to teach them that maybe they're not so interested in, or as a parent, a direction you need your child to go because it's important. If there's a way to link that with their strong qualities, you know, so I call it speaking their language. If their language is activity, if their language is connection with other people, if their language is fun, which for most little children, that's part of their language, and games and songs and stories. If you can find their language and speak their language and start where they're at, then you're on the same wavelength. I mean, that's why it was so easy with me and my mom, because we were already on the same wavelength. And if you're not on the same wavelength with your child or your student, if you can at least recognize what their language is and try to speak it, some at least, it gives you a good starting connection. So let's see. Let me stop there because I could go on forever. And each of you have your own experiences. And I don't have all the answers for sure. And really, you and your child are probably the best resource because it's your guidance that will come to you, really fine tuned for you, that makes it right. But I've had a lot of experience and I've made a lot of mistakes. And most of the things that I really have learned have come from my mistakes. Because honestly, looking at all these parents over the years, I've never found a right way, the right way to parent, because I see all kinds of different parenting and it all works for some kids and other things work for other kids. So I don't think there's a right way. I mean, loving, yes, but some you need to be extra strong for, some you need to be extra lenient for, some you need to be super understanding for, some you need to really give them a long leash, and others you need to hold really close. I think it really depends on individual people. So if you have things that you're wondering about or situations that you think would be helpful for other people that like you learned from, if you want to say something, this is your time. I don't know how to do the answers. Sambhavi, can you do it? If anyone has a question or an answer?
Um, well, if I'm sorry, I can't see who's here. Marlos and Sonia, if you have questions, you can just unmute and ask.
Okay. Well, I just unmuted myself. I got a bit later. My kids are just in bed now.
Yeah.
And I've got 3 children. A 5-year-old, well, almost 6 in a week 6, and twins from 3 in a week 4-year-old.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah. Yes. And what I'm really curious at is the impact of the energization exercises for energy for kids. Because, I was wondering, or if there is a correlation like with ADHD and children do energization exercises, like if that's helpful or, mainly exercise, kind of exercises that can help them. So that's
Right.
one. And then maybe also with anger, for 4 or 6-year-olds, just more practical, exercises.
Right.
I'm searching.
Okay, and yes, and certainly these days, I mean, I've had tons of kids. I never have a year where I don't have more than one child that's ADHD. It's just so common these days. And so I tend not to do all the actual energization exercises, but the super conscious living exercises. I am awake and ready. I am awake and ready. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. Awake my brain, be wise and strong. Are you familiar with those?
No, I've heard someone say say them, so I should look them up online. I
Yes,
guess there might be
because they're
videos. Yeah,
fun. Yeah, I
yeah.
can't do them sitting here, but they're fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're more outward
Mm-hmm.
because you're not, they're childlike and they
Yes.
love
Yeah,
them.
because I
And
I tried the general
yeah,
energization exercises, but it's also
yeah,
disastrous.
yeah,
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
get it. Yeah.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
others, I'll just say, let's stand up. And, you sense, okay, we got to move. And so, we're marching in place. I am awake and ready. I am awake and ready. Or the positive, energetic, your hands go out. And positive, and then in front, energetic and enthusiastic, you jump. And then I'm positive, energetic, and you jump. And
yeah.
so those kinds of things are good. I have a little mini trampoline just outside my front door in my classroom. And I tell them, let me know if you need a jumping break. And they'll just go take a jumping break. And they know some of times I have to direct it. I can maybe set a little timer for a minute, or I'll say, 50. You can go out and do 50 jumps or something like that. And, I don't have trouble with kids just going on and on and on, that kind of thing. Or I have a lot of things in my classroom. I have two different chairs that spin, and so they can. I'll just say, "Would you do better sitting in one of the chairs for a while?" And they can listen if they're moving. A lot of times they can listen better because it gives them that rhythmic kind of um, stimulation, just like autistic kids, that stemming movement that they will do sometimes, it actually is self-soothing. So I find myself thinking, is it helpful? Is it distracting? And if it's distracting, then I'll say, oh, we got to find something else because that's distracting you or it's distracting other kids. But I try to allow movement because I know that that's soothing. And for some kids, I've had weighted lap pads or something like that that need that sensory cuddling weight that's helpful. Um, I've not done so great. A lot of it's really common these days, the little fiddling things for kids to fiddle with. But I've not had, I know I'm not doing it right because it's common, common, common. Some classrooms have just baskets of those. But my experience is that they've been distracting, that the kids will give that their attention and not know what's going on. They're looking down at and I've even tried to say, okay, you can have a little fiddling thing, but you still need to be looking at me. And I do know that eye to eye is really overstimulating for some kids, that they can't do eye to eye. It's like too much energy. And so if I feel like somebody is able to have like a fiddle toy and look down, or like if they're looking at me and they're constantly looking away, that's a signal to me that they can't do eye to eye contact. So I'll let them look down, but then I'll check, are they aware of what the information we're going over or the instructions I've given before they go to work? If they're getting it, I'll make that accommodation for them. So a lot of it is sort of trying different things out, or I'll tell them, go get a drink of water. Some kids, all I have to do is walk by and sort of squeeze their arms a little bit or squeeze their shoulders. Other kids, it's, oh, don't touch me. You have to find what works. But it's not making accommodations for their needs because they're real needs. There's nothing wrong with that, but it has to actually work too. Of course, in the middle of anger, there's nothing you can do. They're out of control and they can't control themselves and you can't reason with them. You have to wait till it's done. I mean, you can't let them hurt things. There were times when I would go to him and just hold him and say, let me go. I'm not going to let you go until your breathing is calm because I can't let you do these things. Other kids are scared and you're going to feel bad afterwards. And then, I just wouldn't talk to him beyond that. I'd just hold him. Let me go. No, I can feel in your muscles you're not ready. I need you to relax. And finally, he'd relax. And then I could let him go and he'd be past it. And later in the day, sometimes the next day, we could talk it over. And I've had, other kids too, where that was the situation. And in a calm time and over, doesn't happen quick, we would figure out a plan. What can you do if you start feeling yourself getting angry? I've had kids like grab pillows, or we have a lot of freedom at our school. We got a giant classroom and it's right here at Ananda Village. And I could say, go walk around the preschool. Just go walk around the preschool till you're ready to come back in, or something like that. You have to find what matches with, age makes a difference. What you can allow, what I could allow a 6-year-old, I couldn't allow a 4-year-old necessarily. But you kind of find what matches them, and it's a plan. I've had this super easy. I had somebody who really responded to quiet music, and I just gave him, there was a CD and a CD player and headphones that were his. And when he'd start feeling something, or I could see it, you can see it coming, in their face and in their tone. A lot of times the tone, if you can catch it before it's caught them, it's way easier to redirect. And I'd say, could you go listen to your music for a few minutes? And he knew it was good for him. And he'd just put it on, for a little bit, and then he'd be okay. And, go give him a hug afterwards. Say, you did great. Thank you. So yeah, it's different. But if you just start looking, okay, what did it? Okay, this might help too. When my son was a tiny baby, I had a friend whose child had been born 3 months before, and I really had a hard time getting my son to sleep. And it would take me he was a lovely baby, really not at all a problem, but it would take me at least a half an hour to get him to sleep. And one day this friend, because I was looking for, pulling the ear or rubbing the eyes, all those signs of being tired. And this friend was over, and it was my son's nap time. And I just finished nursing him, and I was waiting for those signs. And then I said, I got to put him down. If we get off his schedule, he's a basket case. And so I did. And it took me like a half an hour, and she just stayed. And then I said, it takes me so long. And she said, oh, didn't you see when he was tired? And I said, no. And she said, did you notice that moment when he was kind of wiggling around in your arms, and then he got really calm just for a moment, and then he got wiggly again? And I said, yeah. She said, that's his time to go down. And if I could catch it before he had crossed over that threshold into more hyperactivity, and it was like moments, it wasn't even 5 minutes. It was really little window of time. If I caught it and put him down there, then he instantly went to sleep. It can be the same thing with the anger or with a reaction or something. If you can watch like a scientist, and see what's the beginning. In school, I often hear it in the tone of voice before anything even physical. And I know, get there right now, deal with it right now. It's easy. That can really help you. So, but I don't have a one answer, because it really is fine-tuned to the child. Does that help?
Yes. Thanks for the inspiration. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. I have many questions.
Okay.
I could spend hours listening to you.
Thank you.
But one of the questions I have is, I don't know if you're using the life skills cards.
I don't use them formally, but they're certainly embedded in our day all the time.
Can I ask you how do you use them? Because I tried, but I don't really. I'm a little bit lost about how to use it in a proper way.
How often do you have your students?
Well, not now. I'm not working now. I'm having a
Oh,
break.
okay. Okay.
In fact, I'm
Because
in my business. I mean,
uh,
I only teach yoga and mindfulness for 2 kids with autism.
mm-hmm.
Working with autism for the last 3 years, let's say. But my bachelor is in elementary school. I was teaching. I'm from Spain. When I was in Spain, I was teaching English, and now that I'm here, I was teaching Spanish.
Yeah. Your English is really good, by the way. Um, but so your kids with autism,
Mhm.
how often do you have them?
Once a week.
Okay. Everybody I know who's used the cards in a formal way, the reason I don't is that I have been, I was teaching so many, many, many years before those even came out. Um, I just have a flow with how I'm addressed. I do address them. I just don't address them that way. Because it's so natural for me to do it the way I have done it for years. I think they're wonderful. But the teachers I know that use them, and like the schools in India where they're using them, they have them every day.
Mhm.
So it stays up front in their mind.
Yeah.
My guess, this is only a guess, that if you have somebody once a week, that you need to get the parents energized to do it too, so
Mm.
that it stays a regular, because doing something once a week is
Yeah.
really hard to establish,
Yeah.
even for ourselves. Generally, we need to do, even like our meditation practice, the very, very earliest thing that we learn is do it every day. Do it every day. It's important. And so I think if you have students once a week, if there's a way that, if there are parents who would be willing to take it on in their life too, that would
Mhm.
be helpful.
Yeah.
Because once a week is hard to establish a change.
Yeah.
That's like in our class, we're
Yeah.
doing this kind of thing many times every day. It
Yeah.
just becomes a mindset, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
I think that's important. That would be my guess, though.
Thank
You're
Well,
welcome.
I'm using by the way, the supra consciousness. Actually, I use them for the last 10 years. I think it's great. It's great.
Good.
Age, I would say any age. And I'm using affirmations too. And let me see, let me show you. And I'm using this poster. I did this display.
I'm trying to see it. It's out of focus.
Can you see it now?
I see it, but I only see fuzzy red, purple, blue, yellow, like a circle.
Let me see.
I
Yeah,
don't know if you need to get closer. Is it too far away? It's
maybe. Let's see. Yeah, I think now.
well, does anybody else see it clearly?
Sonia, can you unblur your background?
And learn how to do it. Okay.
Um, if you, I'm
No.
not sure on the phone how it is, but
Oh,
if you
oh no.
go to
Oh,
the
there.
video,
Yes, that's it. That was it.
there.
That was it.
Thank
Can you
you.
do?
Yeah.
Yes, my amazing brain. Oh, yes.
So I made this poster to explain them the function of every part of the brain, which
Yeah.
a lot because when you get to the amygdala, the reactive
Yes.
process, they understand very well, and
Yes.
you can stop the reactive process. As you said before, when you see it's raising up,
Yeah.
then you can, yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I talked to my kids a lot about their brain, And it's like it takes away the um, sense of they get to step back from their own reality. It's
Mm.
like their brain is a little separate from them,
Yeah.
you know. And well, my brain is doing this. My brain, or I'll say, I think your brain needs a drink of water. It's not like you need a drink of water. You this, it's your brain.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I give you my email, can you email me a picture or
Sure,
text me or something, a picture of that? I would love it for my classroom.
sure, of course.
Thank,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And then I use this too, that I call it the breathing ball.
Yes, I've seen those.
Yeah.
Now, do
And
you do that in a group setting or do you do that individually?
it depends. Normally I do it, I used to do it in a group. I was teaching a health and wellness program in here in Houston in the public school, and I had almost 700 students,
Wow.
5 hours a day, like yoga and
Wow.
nutrition, and it was a great year. And I use
Yeah.
this one especially for the little ones,
Mm-hmm.
A to, well, elementary, yeah, fifth
Yeah.
grade. Hmm.
So breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in.
Yeah, but I count. I say like breathing in 5 times. I count for them and hold it 2, 3 times. And then when you breathe out, 6 or 7. It takes
Uh-huh.
1 or 2 more exhalations.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do is, especially for the little ones, I said, imagine you have a breathing ball on your hands, and then they open, 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 and this helps to open the chest, the heart.
Yeah. 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 No, I think those are all wonderful ideas. And certainly I have lots and lots of different movements that we use with breathing. And this is for the other people. One thing that I had to realize is that if you have really young kids,
Mhm.
like Marlos, yours, or even my first graders, their lungs are so small that they can't breathe. You don't want them to get out of breath. So if you want that slow breathing in and out, it can't be very long because their lungs are not that big. So, you just can watch them. And sometimes I've had them count, like I'll count and they tell me how much they can breathe in and how long it takes them to breathe in, how long it takes them to breathe out slowly, because I need to know that so that as I'm guiding it, I'm not making them just go out of breath, and it's way different than adults. So just one little detail to keep in mind.
Yeah. It helps for them to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you had other questions? Yep.
Yeah. You
Oh,
how the EFL, well, how to say that? How do you envision the education for life method?
you know, it's on one hand, it's a struggle
Mm-hmm.
because an uphill climb in the academic world, because at least in America, and I think other places too, the academics are so established in the whole group. This is what you do in first grade, this is what you do in second grade, like that. And education for life is all about individual growth. And so, it's one of the blessings of an EFL school is that we're in our academics are in alignment with individual growth. And then everything fits. If you need more time, you get more time. If you're just racing ahead, you can just race ahead. On the other hand, our world is moving towards higher consciousness. We're getting there. And that is huge. I mean, that's what EFL is all about. Even in the academics, in every part, it's all about expansive consciousness. And I think I see more and more young people just get it. They just get education for life. It's like, well, of course. Thank you for, presenting it in a way that's logical and all of that and easy to implement. So I think that while that element is new to some and a big change, I think it's going to become less new and less of a big change as consciousness changes. And they'll look back on treating everybody as if they're the same. Like, how could anybody think that? Or like these giant class. I mean, we limit our classes to 12. And it's like, because we're working individually with I never had, when I taught in public school, I had 35 kids in my class. And I think, I never had 35 adults in my home. What? 35 6-year-olds? Who thinks that's doable? But we all did. And in some places they have more, but for us, so I think really recognizing everybody's individual, recognizing we need to work with kids in a really deep way, not just like a conveyor belt. I think that's going to become not just acceptable, but like, of course. And then I think it's just going to fly, because we've been doing it for a long time. And so we have history to show and examples. And I think people will just say, yeah, this makes total sense. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
We're running out of time, but
I know.
Hanta, do you have something to ask? I'm not sure if she's there.
Okay.
Sorry, Shambhavi, were you talking to me?
Yeah, I was asking if you had a question.
Or are you talking to me? Hi, everybody. I have
Hi.
I have very low battery, and I'm in France with my family, so I couldn't connect until now. I don't know. I don't think I have a question. I'm listening, and I really appreciate. I wish I had been here since the beginning.
But it's recorded.
So, as soon as I tuned in, my antenna was activated. I really appreciate the conversation, and maybe if we had more time, I would love to talk about the difference in, or even how to harmonize dealing with a child a as a child and dealing with them as a soul.
Yeah.
Sometimes for me that's a challenge, especially sometimes when I feel like you can really see how developed the soul is.
Yep.
Yet the body and the process of being a child, there's a disconnect. And so if we had a lot more time, I would love to get into that.
Yeah. Shambhavi, can I have like 2 minutes?
We can take more time, that's fine.
Okay, because I can
Yeah.
just give a really quick answer to that. That is such a great question. And I think we all see that with our children, with our students. You see this incredible shining being that is there, that's their reality. And yet in their stage of life, they're children. And so the childlike part of them, that small and me, and I want it my way, that's the starting point. So your interactions start at that way, and their reality, that higher part, is like your guiding light. You know it's there. You keep your eyes on that, but it's a little bit like if somebody was sick and you just give them like thin soup to have because their stomach can't handle yet a more hearty kind of a meal. So the same thing, the child part of them needs childlike interaction and guidance, little baby steps, but that higher part is there, and it's a good guide, and it's a good thing to focus on, but you have to get there. I mean, you're kind of bringing their incarnation up to them. They're there, that's their soul level. But in this incarnation right now, they're little kids, and you have to sort of usher that part of the incarnation into the soul reality, if that helps.
That's so beautiful. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Narani.
Thank you. Shambhavi, can you share my email with Sonia so that or Sonia, what would be the best way for you to get a copy of that chart for me? You can either text to me or WhatsApp or
Yeah, sure.
email.
Whatever you feel like. Yeah, both.
So
I'll-
Shambhavi, could you give her my email?
Yeah, I can give her your
Because I
email.
don't have hers. Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was
Oh,
such a joy to have time with you and to get to share. Come to Ananda Village.
sorry, one question. Sanya, can you get that chart as well in our WhatsApp group? I'm curious about it too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Shambhavi, for organizing.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a blessed Easter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.